I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. All right. Well, that's old business.
I guess new business is, the episode at hand.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my intro with the one that I wrote, and if it sucks, or if I don't get a good reaction out of you, we'll do the one that you like.
I think we should do both of them irregardless, just to give everybody a treat, and that way we can tell the story of how we both came up with one.
I don't remember what yours is, so I've got to go scroll back through my list and find it. Oh, found it.
A lyric from the Your theme song.
All right, let me get into character.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shamelist Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shamelist Picture Show. I am Michael Vyers, and with me, as always, is a guy that every time he hears "You're the hunter from the future," he nods and proclaims, "I am."
I am Nick Richards.
I had to just comment on the name of this movie. I was telling it to Amanda. It was like a Who's on First routine. I was like, "What are you watching? You're the hunter from the future."
I am.
What? And then let's do the other one. Originally, me and you had a little I don't want to say disagreement. We both came up with a line.
We both got excited about one, and it was
And Nick's was, and with me, as always, is the man that makes all the wild beasts look tame tonight.
Still Nick Richards.
That's still a good one. I can't lie.
The entire theme song is so incredible.
Because don't forget, it's Yours World. He's the man.
I have the lyrics pulled up so that I can reference them at any point during this.
Smart.
You're the touch of fire, the proud and free desire. He never sees the sun. He's always on the run.
Since I assume most of you listening are just such diehards that you don't even look at what the episode's about, on this episode of the Shameless Picture Show, we're going to be knocking a bit of camp off my Shamelist and delve into the Milk Creek release of You're the Hunter from the Future.
Bum, bum, bum. I am. We talked about It, we talked about Saw, and now we talk about You're the Hunter from the Future. I'm sure we could arrange those in such a way where we could totally build a great Who's on First.
I'm sure we could. Oh, I hate whenever I have to talk about the Saw films. I saw Saw.
I see Saw.
Yeah. I feel like we've made this joke before, and it's still fantastic. Anywho.
Did you see it?
I did.
Anyway.
Oh, we gotta write something for that at some point. Anyways. Directed by Antonio Margheriti under the pseudonym Anthony M. Dawson, and written by Margheriti and Robert Bailey. Set before the dawn of time, strange savage beasts roam the land, and cave people fight for survival. Hold on. I'm gonna cut that out. Yor is the mightiest hunter around, but walks alone without a tribe. Yor's origins are unknown, and the only clue he has is a mystical golden medallion that he's had around his neck since he was a child. Yor sets on a quest of discovery, along with two new companions, a priestess named Kala and her protector Pag, to find where he fits in the world.
Someplace in this world where we can live in peace with our people.
He is from a future world, trapped in another time, searching for his past. A hunter of incredible power and strength. In his quest for his origin, he and the woman he loves must fight hostile tribes, battle deadly beasts, and try to survive the violent forces of a newly born Earth. He is the warrior known as Yor. His medallion holds the key to his destiny. His courage makes him master of a world in chaos. His enemy uses the weapons of tomorrow to enslave a primitive planet. But his passion for freedom will set his people free. You're the Hunter from the Future.
You're the Hunter from the Future was by far the most successful film Margheriti directed, but was critically panned by the likes of Variety, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, which claimed even gluttons for dumbness may find it easy to refrain from a second helping. To top it all off, Yor was nominated for 3 awards, the Golden Raspberry Awards, for Worst Actor, Worst Theme Song, and Worst Something Else, which I think are all incorrect. However, that being said, the film lives on today with a strong cult following, and even the director admits it's not a great film, but he's proud of it. And actually, I've got a great way to describe it. There's not much information on this film out there, but there is a really well-written essay on a website called the Free Kitten Movie Guide.
Nice.
And the author, D.M. Anderson, wrote that this film, they're trying to create Flamin' Young on a PB&J budget. Which I think is fair.
Yeah. I think one of the actual thoughtful points, other than just us going through and saying all the ridiculous things that we really liked from.
Oh, because there's going to be plenty.
That will be the majority of this episode, but I think the actual thoughtful point that I'd like to make is about the shared experience of watching movies together.
Me and you, or just in general? Other people?
Everyone.
Gotcha.
So, a lot of times you focus so much on the film itself that you don't think about the experience that you went through with the people that you watch it with. But there's something really special about really bad, really campy movies where you can turn away from it and you're interacting with the people that you're watching it with much more. And bad movies can still be amazing social experiences for that reason.
No, you're exactly correct. And the one mistake I made while watching this film was choosing to watch it alone.
Yeah.
Because while there was plenty to like. Since it was on my Shamelist, I guess I'll say what I thought about it. It's not a movie I loved. However, I feel like it's a film. If I watch it with people, it's really gonna grow on me. Because it's a weird thing, because this film is so fucking all over the place and weird that every time I started getting bored with it, something different would happen. I felt like this movie's got a logical 3-act structure, but each act is its own movie.
It's funny you say that. It was originally designed to be released as a 4-part miniseries. Which are like been 40 to 50-minute pieces. And it's based on an Argentinian comic book.
Yeah, I read that. And then that the director was kind of enamored by it.
Yeah. So we have,
and here's the thing.
Argentinian comic being written and directed by an Italian director and shot in Turkey.
There's a lot to say about that just alone. Because, the thing I love about Italian cinema is there's not a subgenre of film where Italians haven't taken and ran it. Because there's plenty of them. This being more in the sword and sandal type,
yep.
Conan the Barbarian
post-Conan,
film.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to admit, that's still a blind spot for me. I haven't seen a lot of them. I don't know, whenever I'd see the covers, I was like, I don't know if I want to... It just never intrigued me enough to watch a movie about a guy in a loincloth with a sword.
I'm right there with you, and Conan is actually... If it's not already on my official show, Shameless, then I'm adding it now, having done this episode, and it got brought up with the people I was watching it with, so it's something that I think should really get checked off my shame list.
Yeah, I feel like it's something I need to see too. It's just one of those movies that just escaped me for so long, and I'm trying to think of the best, because we're already all over the place. Trying to think of the best way to talk about this film. Like I said, I'm mixed about it. The couple things I thought it did well. I feel like if this movie would have had a bigger budget, it could have done a lot, because the movie's clunky. I don't know if that's necessarily on the director's part, because if you look up the director, he's got a pretty sizable career. He never did a whole lot. Like, it looks like, being an Italian director, he's been all over the place. He's done his spaghetti westerns. He did his Cannibal Holocaust ripoff. He's done his giallos. He's done a little bit of everything. He's worked with names like Lee Van Cleef and John Saxon. He's Klaus Kinski. So, like, it's one of those things that, like, I don't know necessarily if he's necessarily a bad director or if he just didn't have the budget. Because, like, there are some things in this movie that were made really well. Like, as dumb as it is to have a herbivore attacking Yor at the beginning of the film, it was, all things considered, a pretty decent practical effect.
And
he beat the shit out of that dinosaur.
For that era, that type of that budget, certainly, having, and it wasn't the only dinosaur in the film either.
No.
It's not Jurassic Park, but it was never going to be.
No. And, like, at first when they were, like, hunting the armored, like, what is it, the pig dressed like a dinosaur or whatever, it's like, oh, is this what it's going to be? And then the fucking dinosaur came out of nowhere, and Yor, with his axe that's more just of a club, he just kept beating the shit out of that dinosaur, and it's like, well, this is fantastic.
While the entire tribe, wielding weapons, stood and watched.
Yeah.
Nah, he looks like he's got it. This stranger is going to be just fine.
And then, like, one thing I kept thinking of, because I watched Yor, and then I went to go see Black Panther, like, the next day. And I just kept thinking, it's like, someone could do a big budget version of Yor where, like, you can mix prehistoric cavemen with sci-fi action, kind of like a mixture, like, kind of like Thor, and make a pretty watchable movie out of it. Like,
absolutely.
I never thought I'd say it, but fucking Yor, the Hunter from the Future, needs a remake.
Let's do it. Put the treatment together.
We got to start pitching that around for some cashola, because I don't want our sci-fi sequences to just be dudes in leather outfits running around a factory.
Right. Well, and it's something that you could point to a lot of things that made the film not successful, but I think one of the saddest oversights is I think it did a terrible job of connecting the prehistoric world with the futuristic robot island thing. And that's not to say that the information isn't there. And I'm sure it's stronger in the comic. I have not bothered to look it up or read it.
Yeah, we don't care about that.
But I think there was so much potential. Like, okay, so cheesy effects, fine. Cheesy acting, low budget. You can deal with a good amount of that if they had done a better job of connecting how he got from point A to point B, why he did it. I think it would have been a significantly stronger film.
No, I completely agree, because, like, I've seen enough Italian films in my time to know that acting is going to be questionable, and not because anyone in it is necessarily a bad actor. But think about it this way: you've got Reb Brown, who is an American, acting against a French actress who actually was in movies.
Yeah, we have a connection to an old episode.
Yes, you do. And then the guy who's playing Pog, Luciano Pagazzi, he's Italian.
With some amazing ADR happening throughout the entire film to try and balance all that.
How Sergio Leone used to do these films, and Clint Eastwood's talked about this, is like he said there was a famous scene in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly where him and a priest are talking in a church, and the priest is actually Leone's brother, who he doesn't speak a lick of English, and Clint Eastwood knew a couple phrases in Italian but was not fluent in it to say, and since Clint Eastwood's the star. They're obviously going to have it be... he's going to speak English because it's for American audiences. Yeah. How they would work this, Clint Eastwood has said, is when he's talking, the other guy just knows when Clint Eastwood done talking, the other guy says his lines in his comfortable language, and they just know to go back and forth like that, and then they dub it over later. So you could have the greatest Italian actor on the planet, but if he's working against someone who doesn't speak his English, there's always going to be a bit of disconnect. Yep. And I completely agree. Like, I feel like if the story would have been stronger, it would have been a completely different thing. Because I don't know if I just, at one point, I stopped paying attention. I'm still not even too sure why Yor was in the prehistoric era. Or
It took, this is probably the fourth time that I've seen this film, and this is the first time that I got it, because it is glossed over and not properly supported. So if I'm understanding it right from this watch through, Yor was born in the future, hence the name, which again was something that never totally made sense to me on previous viewings. Yor is from the future. He was born in the future in that on that island, perhaps.
He's kind of like the Kal-El of the story.
And then there's this storm surrounding this island that acts as a time portal, a time warp. So for whatever reason, as a child, he was sent through this time portal and grew up in the past. And he had the medallion from the future. So he grew up as a dawn of time caveman. Then he was trying to track down the origins of this medallion, which somehow sent him back to this island through this storm, where they said, yes, you're one of us. You were raised here. You were, you're one of our people. But then he abandoned, as with the lyrics, where is it? He abandons his name, or...
Funny thing, I had to put the subtitles on for that song the first time because I had no idea what the fuck they were saying. You know what? I might be one of the few people that wishes this. I wish there was more sci-fi action in this film.
It should have hit sooner.
Yeah, I think halfway through, Like when he found I'm terrible with names in this movie. When he met Enna in the cave, that's when they should have gotten to the future.
Yeah.
When he met the when he met the girl with the medallion and everything, and you saw the guy's frozen in ice for some reason. That's when I think it should have happened. And instead, what we got was a very weird love triangle.
Extremely weird.
Like, yours originally, like he's pretty into Kala, and then he met Enna, and he's like, "Fuck you, Kala, I'm interested in Enna," and then Enna dies, and he's like, "Oh, Kala's my girlfriend."
I don't even think it was "Fuck you, Kala." It was like, now you will both be my women. Because there was that constant line that it came from like 3 different sources. Like, well, in our culture, men have several wives, and it was like every tribe they ran across was like, well, why just one? Why not both?
Where's his other wife?
But then you got that great bit by the river where Kala is like, "I'm gonna kill you," but then she dies from that purple face, like monkey thing, and then she was like, "Oh, I'm so sad she's gone," and put a flower on her grave.
Yep. However, during all this stuff, when Kala's dealing with her broken heart over Yor having eyes for another woman, Pog gives some really great insight. This line for some reason stuck out at me. A generous man does what his heart commands. Let's just let that sink in.
Yep. It either is absolute gibberish or it's beautiful and brilliant, and I haven't wrapped my head around it yet.
We'll let everyone stew on that a little bit.
Let us know. What do you think? Also, Pog's arrows were ridiculous. There's no way those things would fly. It was like a stone knife, like tied to a stick. It would have been so off balance.
Plus, his bow in itself was really thick.
It looked like a toy bow and arrow that was never meant to fire, but had those suction cut, like the way he held it, and it was so wonderfully horrible.
There was a moment where I could definitely see how thin they were stretching this budget. Was when your Kala and Pog were like, I'm trying to think of where they were going. It was after the blue-skinned villagers. It was like the fire people, like right before they met Enna.
Okay.
They're walking through like a stone chasm, and you could obviously see like 3 people just huddled next to the rock wall, and Yor walks right past them, never thinking, "Hey, that's just 3 people just in gray paint." And then they come in and attack him. And it's like, I feel like what in the script, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like in the script there was, something a little cooler, like, he walks past a rock wall and then the eyes open up or something. Sure. And it's like, we can't really afford to do that, so just huddle over there and try to make yourself kick rocks.
Amazing.
And like, maybe if they would have framed it differently so I couldn't see their legs.
Yeah.
But the legs were dead.
Let's talk for a second about, because so much of this film is like cheesy, horrible, and campy. Do you have any thoughts on things that they really succeeded on? Things that they did well?
Yes, I thought all things considered, like I said, I thought the practical effects were really good. There was a scene with like the fire tribe where it was kind of amazing, and I don't mean this in a bad way. This one I mean completely. It was actually kind of impressive that they were fighting in slow motion while actually not being in slow motion, because they were using legitimate fire and they were doing all these stunts themselves. And Red Brown's not wearing any clothing, so he like they have all this stuff orchestrated with fire, and these fight scenes were, all things considered, really well done. Because at the time, fight scenes were all done in wide shots, and the type of film they're trying to imitate. I thought that was really well done. I surprisingly liked the character of the Overlord. and his like hall of wonders, as I call it. Like, I don't know, I felt like John Steiner was doing what he could with the character.
Yeah.
And like his design, I thought when we were in his throne room, was like, okay, this is really cool. I like the look and design of this. It didn't match the warehouse they were in later on, but no, like I thought. And then, you know, for all things considered, Reb Brown, who plays Yor, there's only so much you can do with this character in terms of acting. I thought he did a sizable job, and I really end up liking Pog at the end of the film, the old man.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like he was doing his own stunts, and like I imagine, like the actor who plays Pog, he's a pretty respectable Italian actor, and I was like, you know, it's kind of cool that he cares enough about his job that he's willing to do this job in a loincloth.
Oh, all the butts. So many butts.
Oh, God, everyone's butts. Like, Reb Brown, I've seen his butt so many times. I saw Corinne Clary's butt so many times. It's so many.
I do.
That could be a positive, too.
Right. I do appreciate, though, like, unlike with, like, Dirty Harry, that would just watch, that's the last episode, some of the, like, there was the Peeping Tom sequence where it was so apparent that they're like, let's get one more of those shots in, you know. Oh, by the way, you want to see that one more time? We'll throw that in one more time. Where this, they didn't feel, it never felt to me that, like, the director was trying to, like, hey, here's a shot of some skin for you, you know.
I have to say, I was all things considered impressed that they didn't make the loincloth with underwear. Like, it was just a loincloth covering their bits, and they all took it with gusto. Mm-hmm. Like, I have to say, like, it never made sense to me if I'd watch Tarzan and, like, he'd be fighting and he had underwear underneath. It's like, this is the first time I've seen a loincloth that was layered legitimately just to cover your bits, and not very effectively, mind you.
I hope that, like, 100% of the pre-production energy went into defending that creative decision.
I hope so.
That there was no, like, yeah, the dinosaur is fine. I am putting these people in real loincloths.
This has to happen. It's like, I was listening to a podcast recently. It's called Inside Psycho, where it's a 6-part deep dive about the making of Psycho. And at the time when Psycho was made, you could not see a toilet on screen, let alone hear it flush. Yep. It was not allowed. And you know, the censors sent their note to Hitchcock. It's like, you got to remove this. This is not cool. And like in the podcast, they say that Hitch just kind of leaned back in his chair, chomped on a cigar, and said, "Well, we're gonna have to fight for it." Like, without even thinking, it's like, this is something he has to fight for.
I will go to the mat on this toilet shot.
This is important. It's necessary for storytelling. We got to fight with all of our power to keep this in.
It would be so easy to go, yeah, we don't really need that toilet shot. But, you know, kudos for him to say, you, I'm putting this toilet in this film.
I like to imagine, like, he just, like, flipped the table. He's like, no!
You can't
We're
tell me
getting
what
this
to
toilet.
Do. I'm going to put in 2 toilets now.
Alfred Hitchcock. You can't tell me what to do. Anyways, I'm going to turn the question back to you.
Yes.
Granted, this is the movie you recommended to me because of your fondness towards it. And Mill Creek, our sponsor, was really nice in making sure you got yourself a copy of it. What do you think the film did well? What appeals to you about this film besides just nostalgia? Let me see inside your brain.
Well, I think I'm going to treat that single question as 2 separate questions.
Sure.
So
that's what I meant.
I'm going to treat it as 7 separate questions then. What's
okay.
What's going on in my brain? Oh, sit down and let me spin you a tale. Now, the biggest thing for me, and I didn't really frame it this way until this watching, but I think what made me fall in love with this film in the first place is that concept of the shared experience of watching a bad movie, because I was introduced to this film by a friend of mine. Shout out to Sean and Amber. Thank you so much. You guys have made this episode possible, along with Mill Creek. And it was that same thing, like, there's this horrible movie that you have to see. Like, let's all sit down and watch this horrible thing together. And it becomes a part of your shared dialogue as friends. Like, the amount of times that we were just hanging out and would scream out, "It burns like fire!" Because apparently everything in yours world burns like fire.
Especially when he pees.
And this goes to the idea of, in any relationship, creating your own kind of language. You can say, by quoting something, you can say with a few words, you can convey a lot more than you ordinarily can when you're referencing an experience that you shared together.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I fell in love with this movie. And I think because it's a bad movie, it encourages the audience members to interact with each other much more. When there's a good movie, I tend to, if I'm watching it with somebody, you sit and you watch it. I just watched Voltaire for the first time. And there wasn't a lot of crosstalk because I was engrossed in the film. And then afterwards, you kind of analyze it, but you don't have that dialogue as it's happening. So it was still...
Yeah.
It was a great film, but it's a different kind of experience. And I think watching bad... And they talk about this in that documentary about the fan base behind Trolls 2. Right? Like...
Yeah, best worst movie.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Luciano Pagazzi, who played Pog, was the grandfather in that movie. Continue.
There you go. But it creates community. Like, that's why these cult fan bases pop up. It's not because people just, like, really want to waste their time on terrible art. It's that shared experience is something that you can't get with quality film.
No, exactly. It's like when I watched The Godfather recently. Like, it's not a good group movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, afterwards you can pick it apart and be like, yeah, they did this really well, they did this really well, but like a movie like that, you don't want to talk.
Yeah.
And it's like something like The Godfather is more in the vein of high art, while The Hunter from the Future is pop art.
Yeah. So then the follow-up question, or I guess separate question, of what I think they actually succeeded and did well. What really stood out to me was the locations. One of my techniques, if you'll call it, as a filmmaker of covering up the fact that I'm not brilliant, is if you can find amazing locations, you're going to add so much character to your film without a whole lot. You know, you get a lot of production value without all of the effort of building those sets and writing that character in. It's a lot of layers, and I felt that with all their exterior shots of walking through these kind of badlands, this desert, the woods, the huts that they had built up on stilts on the waterfront, and they did a great job with as you were referencing, in the future setting on this island, that made it compelling and also contrasted significantly against everything else that you had seen before that. So I really appreciate what you had said and hadn't thought about it like it, but it's absolutely true. You know, yeah, there are points where this film drags, but right when you start to feel that, something really different will happen, and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm engaged again.
Yeah, like I could actually, like, you know, I have to say, like, I was bored during the opening credits. Other than the music, it's like watching Red Brown struggle to run down a hill. Like, one of the reviews I read for this movie said, for all aspiring filmmakers, don't ever introduce your character by running down a steep hill. You're not meant for it. And I was like, fair. And it's like, other than the song, it's like just seeing, you know, shots of large vistas. Like, I was like, well, I can listen to the song, whatever. Which you all have to go listen to because it's fantastic.
Oh, we have to include it in this episode.
Oh, hell yeah. And then, like,
World.
they cut to the village, and they're all lifting their children up to the air, and the kids all look really bored. And I was like, oh, I am already bored. And then the dinosaur fight happened, and I was like, I'm in again. And then, some stuff happens, and then the blue cavemen attack, and that entire sequence was pretty great. And there's a lot of creepy implications with those blue cavemen.
Yeah.
They seem like they're cannibals. They're very rapey, and they're
uncomfortably misogynistic, and what
there's no women in their community.
They just take them from other communities. This one's mine now. We will fight, and the winner will get this woman.
And then he vanquishes the blue cavemen, and I'm like, my first thought was, is the movie almost over? Like, I feel like this was his big triumph,
right.
And it's so early into the movie. He hasn't even gotten to the future yet.
The pacing was strange.
Yeah, and then he starts dragging again, and then he meets Enna and has that whole thing in the cave. I'm like, oh, this is kind of intriguing. And then there's the weird love triangle. I started losing interest again, and then boom, it was in the future. It's like, I'm back in.
Well,
I'm back.
You're missing the most important sequence of the entire film: how a bunch of corn husks tied together can float on the water, let alone suffer or make it through this wild storm that no one's been able to traverse before.
For some reason, a stegosaurus with sharp teeth attacking them, that doesn't bother you.
Nope.
Their makeshift raft is what you're poking holes in.
Not the raft. The raft was another... The raft I was cool with. It was the corn husk boat.
Oh, like the one they stole. The one they stole from that really great action sequence of that village, just blowing the...
From like random laser beams. Fire from the gods. It burns like fire.
Yeah.
No, it is a god. He fell from the sky.
Oh, and then that whole cave battle was... oh, I just remembered a line that I love. Stupid talking box. Oh, but we're making fun of it, but like I said, that some of these sequences are really well done. That exploding village scene, there
was tension.
Yeah, and I saw where the budget went.
Yep.
This movie did not have a very large budget, but they put all of it on screen.
Yep.
They weren't putting on the characters because they don't have any clothing, so they could put it all into effects.
What we save in loincloth fabric, we will put into blowing up huts and dinosaurs.
I feel like, maybe I'm wrong. I remember reading about, just briefly in my little bit of research, like I said, I don't like to use a lot of Wikipedia in these because it's always questionable. When a movie this obscure, there's not a lot out there.
Plus, a lot of the nature of bad movies and the cult following is you're going to that fan base for the information, because that's what makes the movie what it is. So then Wikipedia becomes a bit more applicable.
Yeah, and one thing I remember reading, and maybe it's incorrect, but the original comic, You're the Hunter, did not go to the future. I feel like they had a little bit of scratch. The movie wasn't costing them much because it's about cavemen. They're like, well, how can we amp this up? There's, other than having some, a little bit of fire and some stick weapons, what can we do? Let's put this movie in the future.
Right.
Let's cash in on that Star Wars money.
Totally. Well, in the same way that Moonraker did. Like James Bond, let's put him in space because Star Wars. And this
what year was Moonraker? I'm trying to remember.
Conan was a big hit. Yeah, but what if we add Star Wars to Conan?
Yeah, because I just was looking at the You're the Hunter comic page on Wikipedia, and it's apparently he's from Atlantis in there. And but there were some science fiction themes.
Huh.
But someone was like, you know what? Star Wars.
I think there's a solid premise here. And as you said, I think it could be rebooted very successfully. This was...
hell, they could just change the Thor movies into You're the Hunter movies. If they remove all the Asgard stuff and just, I don't know, I feel like it's possible.
And add a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Totally.
That'd be the strangest reboot. Because usually a reboot is made to jump on the success of an existing franchise. Like, remaking Yor would be so strange.
Challenge accepted.
Except we don't have any money for it.
Oh. Well, we'll just do it on the cheap.
So
let's make filet mignon, but on a peanut butter and jelly budget.
I have to say though, like that's like I read that quote and like I was nodding my head because like I get that.
Oh sure.
I am a low budget filmmaker.
Yeah.
I've never had much money. I only did one time in my career, and it was because I was making a film for Milwaukee Film. But other than that, it's always just been like whatever we can scrounge together. So like, yes, I don't want to say I'm being harsh in the film because like I feel like it's harsh in a loving way. What I think is so endearing about this film is the fact that they tried to make something with large scope, without really having the money to do so. Like, I've not been able to find an exact figure of how much money they had, mainly because they, shot it in different countries and everything. It probably wasn't much, but they're like, fuck it, let's get the guy from the Captain America TV show and do something.
Right. I like, I'm gonna butcher it because I don't remember the quote anywhere near as it was stated, but looking at comments from the director, I appreciated his take on the film looking back on it. It seemed like he knew exactly what Yor was. That he wasn't looking at it thinking that it was something different than what it was. It's like, this was a really successful film for me, and I know it's not a brilliant piece of cinema, but I think it is fun, and I enjoy going back and watching it from time to time because it's a fun popcorn movie.
Yeah, like it's not like something like it's not like the director who made Troll 2, for example, in Best Worst Movie, and like when all the actors of Troll 2 are on stage just butchering it, and the director's in the back of the crowd like tearing up because he legitimately thought he made a good film, and like I feel for that guy because he's everyone's trash talking. He thought he did something great, and it's hurting him. Like it's almost more endearing that the director knew he wasn't making Shakespeare.
Right.
He knew he was making a fun popcorn movie.
And it is
he's
what
like,
it is.
well, what's and
it's cool that people still like it.
Yeah, like he's not dumb. He's not like
naive
to what the film is.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you got anything else on yours specifically?
Did we mention the theme song?
Yours world. It's his world, and you're gonna see his butt.
One thing I will mention, I think Yor the Hunter from the Future is a terrible title.
I am.
I think like the Italian title, which was Il Mondo de Yor, or The World of Yor, Yor's World, however you want to translate it, would have been a better title.
I think I agree with you, but at the same time, it's fitting.
Fair enough.
Because like the title is cheesy, the film is cheesy, it feels right.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I will add, because I'm still on the Wikipedia page, and Margheriti has commented that the film is, he said the extended television release of the film is even more hilarious.
How do we get the Mill Creek? Do us a favor.
Find us this version. Yeah, he says it's a fun project with almost no money. It was a party movie, and sometimes enjoy looking at it again.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, what else could you want from a film career? Like, if you can go back and look at your stuff and go, God, that was fun. This has brought people joy, even though it's not because of, amazing. Just because it's fun. Like, I would be very happy at the end of my life if I have created stuff that has made people smile, even if it's because it's bad.
Yeah, and like think about it this way: the film is enough of a fan base that our sponsor Mill Creek did a restoration of Yor and put it on Blu-ray. Like you saw the film on VHS. I tell me I'm right. The film looks a lot better than you remember it looking.
Oh yeah, well
hell, you can see it in widescreen now.
You can start getting into the debate about like the musicians argue, the audiophiles arguing that vinyl's better. No, I'm really into 8-tracks, and I'll never get rid of my cassette tapes till the day I die. And then, on what media, how the media that it's stored on affects the experience, right? So I now have a terrible beat up VHS copy of Yor that my friend gave me when he moved. It was like this, whenever you have a good friend move, it's often that you have this like trading of, here, remember me always, and here is this thing as you're packing up. And he gave me Yor and Krull, I believe, on VHS cassette.
Awesome.
And now I have this great Blu-ray copy too, that they're different experiences. They're both amazing. Because of that, when you put in the VHS, you get that fuzzy, jittery.
Yeah, and you're preaching to the choir because I'm a VHS collector. Like, I own more editions of Halloween than I do any other film. But and I completely agree that there is something to be said about that grainy way of watch. Just like I personally think the best way to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre is on VHS. But I own a lot of cleaned up, restored versions of the film because I like having options.
Totally.
And like I said, I like that a place like Mill Creek or Vinegar Syndrome or Scream Factory, hell, even Criterion just put out Night of the Living Dead. I like that these companies are seeing worth in these films.
Yeah.
So much so, like, not only to clean it up, because they could just take whatever's available and just throw it on a disc. Not only did they clean it up, but they recorded a commentary with Reb Brown, which I didn't get the chance to listen to. But they know that someone out there cares about this. And while, like I said, we were poking fun at it, I know somewhere out there this is someone's favorite movie.
Yeah.
And for that alone, I think it's worth watching, just because I try not to shit on a film. And I think I'm glad that you always ask me, what did you like about the film? Because, like I said, there's something in this film that someone loves.
Yeah.
And I like that it exists in the world. And you know what? Instead of a remake, I think we should make a crossover film, Nick.
Okay.
Let's do Yor the Hunter Back from the Future. You're welcome.
I think my brain just blew up. That's amazing. That's the sequel, right? Yor Back from the Future. Because he does leave the island at the end, flying off in that, like, weird, X-Wing that's not an X-Wing out of the really skinny corridor back to the future, but to the past.
Marty, Yor's becoming...
Something's got to be done about your kids!
And then they crash into the DeLorean, and they have to, using just technology they can find on Yor's in the prehistoric era and what they can steal from the back on Robot Island, they repair the DeLorean. All is well.
Fun fact, the wig that Yor has in the film is the exact same wig as future Biff Tannen in Back to the Future 2.
There's all these connections.
That's not a fact. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
I was just going to run with it. So before we wrap up for the episode, I know you just went to a film festival and had a couple things you wanted to talk about, and I wanted to piggyback on your soul episode where you're talking about soundtracks. So which order do you want to do?
Let's do soundtracky stuff first. I'm very eager to hear what you got.
All right, since I don't want this to run too long, and I want to play clips for all of these, I made kind of a longer list, but I don't care. A couple that really stuck with me, not necessarily my favorites, just some that stuck with me, is I have to mention it first and foremost is John Carpenter's theme from Halloween. Yeah. Because Halloween is affected every facet of my life. I'm gonna get for this, but I feel like you'll know what I mean. In my book, Halloween is probably one of the greatest films ever made. and not just like, oh, greatest horror film. Like, I will put that film toe to toe with Citizen Kane, and I think it's in my life, it's the greatest film ever made.
I want to say, and I could be wrong, I believe the Halloween theme, the time signature is 10/8.
I thought it was 4/4. Oh no, 8/4.
8/4 maybe.
Because John Carpenter's talked about his father, who was a session musician, teaching him 8/4 time signature on the bongos.
Okay, here,
and it's
now I have to look it up. Let's see. Theme song is written in 5/4.
All right, we are both kind of close.
Yeah, which 5/4 and 10/8 are going to have a similar. It gets a little amorphous as the difference between 5/4 and 10/8.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know. I just think it's a theme song that really just sticks with you, and it's instantaneously recognizable. Someone hears that, they know what it's from. After that, from one of my favorite movies, Empire Records.
Oh.
You get Coyote Shiver's song "Sugar High." They sing on the top of the building, and
yes.
Every time that song comes out, like, I know practically every word to that song. It's like if someone was ask me, what are the song lyrics to Sugar High? I'm like, if I know. But as soon as it comes on, I can hit every single word on that song. And I think it's a great. I think it's a perfect movie. I think it's a time capsule for when it was made.
I completely agree. I love that movie.
I think everyone should see that movie. Like, I think it stands up to the pantheon that John Hughes was creating in the 80s, but for a new generation of people that are trying to find their place in the world and who just don't give a shit. At the same time, give too much.
So quick tangent off of this. I recently had a conversation with somebody where we were trying to place ourselves and our friends as the character. Like, if you're a character from Empire Records, who would you be? You know, who are you? And we do this for every movie and TV show. But so I'm going to pose the question to you first. If you were to identify with one particular Empire, like, who is the Michael Myers in Empire Records?
Part of me, and I feel like this would be Amanda's vote, because she obviously sees me in a different way than anyone else does. Part of me wants to say I'd be the AJ of the group.
Okay. Why'd you
art
glue
student.
these quarters down? I don't feel like
I don't feel the need to explain my art to you.
Totally.
And then, I feel like everyone in their brain thinks they're as wise as Lucas thinks he is.
Okay.
I feel like AJ would be who I'd want it really be, but honestly, I would not be surprised if I'm actually Mark.
So I always wanted to be the Mark, but am actually Lucas.
Outlaw man, we salute you.
Thank you, Eddie.
No problem.
This song goes out to our employee of the week, Lucas.
Oh, a little tribute, man.
I feel like now, as an adult, I'm Joe.
We're all Joe.
We're all Joe. We all grew up to be Joe, but at least we didn't grow up to be Rex Manning.
Yeah.
Rex,
I should.
You're so sexy.
I should be so lucky. Say no more, mon amour.
Dude, I gotta watch that movie again now.
Okay, so Coyote Shivers, Sugar High.
Yeah, Coyote Shivers plays Burko in the movie.
Yeah.
Didn't do a whole lot music-wise, but the little bit I've heard from him, I really liked his music. And I wish he would have done more music or even more acting, because I think Burko was not featured enough. I feel like, honestly, if I could have a dream project, originally I would have said converting Heathers into a TV show, but someone's already doing that.
Bastards.
If I could do Empire Records, maybe not necessarily as a series, but if I can do it as a mini-series, like a 6-episode type thing, where I can expand on those characters.
That would be cool as a mini-series where each episode follows one character, because it's an ensemble cast, and you get little bits and pieces
kind of like
everyone
Elephant.
Weaved together. Sorry, what's that?
Kind of like the movie Elephant, where if you could just follow each character throughout the progression of their day and see how they interact with everyone, and it'd be even funny too, fun to each episode to see the episode is strictly from the perspective of that character, where, like, you know, for example, if Gina is talking to why can't I think of the other character? Girl, Deb. When Gina and Deb are talking, like when you are on the Deb episode, Gina, the way she performs, you know, says everything is really snotty, and because that's the way Deb sees her, and then you see it from another perspective. I don't know. There's a lot you could do with that.
They did something similar recently on the show This Is Us.
I've heard a lot about that show recently.
I love it. So there's 3 brothers and sisters. They call them triplets, but one of them still born on the same day but was adopted.
Okay.
But grew up as brothers and sisters, so they're triplets for all intents and purposes. And there's a lot of flashbacks to their childhood and how that affects where they all are now as adults. Well, there was a 3-episode arc where it was the same series of events, but each one told the perspective of one of the 3 siblings. And did very much what you were saying, like, they did a lot with audio mixing, I think, where they didn't deliver different performances, but they highlighted certain comments and responses. The way they shot it and the way that they mixed the audio made a big difference in how you read that same conversation 3 different ways.
That sounds really cool. Yeah, it sounds similar to the idea I'd want to do for an Empire Records TV show.
All right,
moving on.
But back to soundtracks.
A movie that not many people have seen, but has made a huge impression on me since I saw it. So much so that when me and Amanda got married, we both walked down to a different song, and this is the song that I walked down to that my buddies, the Directionals, played live for me.
Nice.
It's called Faust.
Okay.
It's from the movie Phantom of the Paradise, which is a rock opera retelling of Phantom of the Opera meets Faust.
Nice.
Performed by an actor named William Finley, written by Paul Williams. If I had a way to pipe it into you right now, I would play it for you. But, you know, take my word on it that it's a really beautifully written song.
Cool.
Paul Williams knows his way around a song, so look it up as soon as we're done here. The score for The Terminator.
Ooh, interesting.
By Brad Fiedel is probably one of my favorite scores of all time. The song Real Hero by the band College from the movie Drive has always really stuck with me. Drive being one of my favorite movies in the last 10 years. I think it's just an amazing mixture of high art, high concept with action fodder, and it uses pop music really effectively in the film.
Nice.
Got 2 more. Shirley Bassey's song Goldfinger from Goldfinger, one of my all-time favorite Bond
choice.
Anytime it comes on, I get goosebumps. And then finally, because this movie and this song helped cultivate my taste in punk music, Iggy Pop's song Repo Man from Repo Man.
Awesome.
Which you still need to see.
It's on my Shamelist. I mentioned it to... actually, that's a perfect segue, because I was just telling that anecdote about how you compared it to my film to Repo Man. I was telling that story to a Scottish filmmaker friend of mine whom I met at the DC Independent Film Festival in Washington, D.C. when at the world premiere of my film Normal. This is Dave Brown, and his short film A Bird in the Hand opened for Normal. And we got along like gangbusters, became instantly fast friends, very similar to like our story and how we met. It was kind of meant to be. I made a lot of really great friends who live really far away from me during the festival circuit of Normal. But anyway,
it happens, man.
This past weekend, Dave Brown came back from Scotland unexpectedly. He didn't think he was going to be representing there, but he ended up making it work to promote a film that he produced, a short film, back at DCIFF, The Inescapable Arrival of Laszlo Patuszki.
Woo, that title!
It's a heavy title, a really beautiful short film. It won.
Is it available?
It is not. It
okay.
Recently this year won a Scottish BAFTA award
Ooh.
And also won Best Short Film at, I believe it's the Rutgers Film Festival, maybe a New Jersey festival. I don't remember exactly which one, but it's doing really well. Played in a block of short films. I think there were 6 or 7 short films. It's really, it's one of those films that has inspiring visuals, right? So there's not a lot of dialogue in the film. It felt a lot like an anxiety dream to me.
Okay.
Like those, you don't know the combination to your locker and you're late for class. Like, it gave me that kind of feeling watching it. And I got to talk to the director. I don't remember his last name offhand, but guy by the name of Sven, very cool guy. He kind of confirmed some of my suspicions about the film, that it was intended to like be this anxiety dream. So keep your eye on it. Find it on Facebook and like it. I'm sure once it is available, that's where you get the information. But once again, the title is The Inescapable Arrival of Laszlo Patushki.
Damn, we're gonna have to put a link to that in the in the liner notes, because that's gonna be hard to remember. Did you see anything else you liked there before I transition into a related topic?
I did. There was one more short film that really stood out to me. It got a little off for me at the end, but the majority of it was hilarious, really entertaining, and that was the film Potty the Plant.
Okay.
If you've seen Neil Patrick Harris's Puppet Dreams YouTube show, I have not. It reminded me of a combination of that meets Little Shop of Horrors with a little bit of vampire thrown in for good measure. Okay. It was a musical, absolutely ridiculous in the best possible way. Again, it got weirdly, a lot of films I felt like 2 or 3 of the films in the short film block got unnecessarily rape-oriented. And just, like, if it's an important part of your narrative, that's one thing. But it was thrown around casually, and I think we've kind of, as a society, agreed that that's not really necessary or appropriate.
If it's a cheap narrative ploy, don't use it.
So that got weird. But up until that point, it was incredible. I think the writers and directors have a great sense of what's funny, and really spoke to me.
That sounds good. Actually, speaking of film festivals, I actually got to be a special guest judge for a local horror festival called the Twisted Dreams Film Festival.
Nice.
A couple of friends of mine, they've been really good to me. Their first 2 years, they've shown my stuff, and I've been helping them behind the scenes and whatnot. And they asked me originally, they're calling me a special guest judge, but it's more of I was a curator for because Lloyd Kaufman is one of the judges this year, because I helped make that connection.
Oh, cool.
And they're actually choosing which films are gonna win an award. I had nothing to do with that. What I got to do is Troma submitted a bunch of films, and it's not like the classics, Lloyd Kaufman stuff. It's like newer pickups that they've done.
Okay.
And I got to watch through those and choose the one that I thought I wanted to show.
Cool.
And there was one that stuck out with me that's going to play at the film festival. And for those of you listening who want to come, it's going to be April 13th through the 15th. Originally, Nick and I were going to try to make it work where we could do a live show that weekend. I don't think it's going to work now, but that was the plan.
Yeah, because I am going to Scotland shortly after that to see to be there for the wedding of Dave Brown, the Scottish filmmaker that I got to see. So it all comes back around.
I'm not going to fault you for going to Scotland. That sounds rad.
Right.
But the film I chose, while there was a couple that I really liked, the film that I ended up choosing was a movie called The Slashening. Everyone knows my fondness and love for slasher films. And while I will say the film's a little rough around the edges, it's got a lot of heart, because what humor-wise, they're not trying to make a legitimate slasher film. They are trying to make a self-aware parody of them, which works because humor-wise, it's very similar to what I love about Wet Hot American Summer.
Okay.
And I was laughing so much throughout the film, so I recommend everyone come on down to the Twisted Dreams Film Festival and see the slashing amongst everything else, because there's a lot of great things being shown.
Sounds great.
But I think that's all I've got, Nick.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for our discussion of The Hunter from the Future. I do recommend seeing it, but only as don't go in expecting a great film. Go in expecting a really fun time with a good group of friends. That's why you're watching this film.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know when it's ever going to happen, but if you can find a way to see it in a theater, do that.
And so our next episode, we plan on doing The Godfather.
Yes.
Which I think has kind of been at the top of both of our Shameless.
Yeah, I've never seen it. Well, technically I have, but
I've seen I've probably seen 2/3 of it, but always on TV in like 10 to 15 minute chunks. You know, if I will probably recognize the majority of it, but without the context of watching it consecutively, it's it doesn't mean much.
Yeah, and exactly. Our schedule got pushed back so far because I thought we were doing The Godfather a lot sooner. I watched it already a couple weeks ago, so I'm gonna need a refresher before we actually do this episode. So it's gonna be fun, and then after that, we're planning our big double feature. It seems like we're doing one double feature a year, which I think is a good amount.
Yeah, 1 to 2. I want to say
have we done 2?
We did the Christmas one. I thought we did another one, but I could be wrong.
Technically, the Christmas one was in 2016, so I'm not wrong.
There you go. Touche.
Yeah.
I was thinking per season, but yeah.
Yeah. And our double feature of Super Mario Brothers and Masters of the Universe.
Awesome. And I'm going to advocate for the next one being Ravenous.
I think we should do Repo Man because we've already done enough of films off of my own Shamelist. It's pretty much been almost consistently me.
Cool.
And then after Repo Man, we'll do Ravenous.
All right. It's a deal.
All right. Well, you have a good one, Nick. Party on.
You too. Party on, Michael.